Yeah, press on. One of the people here, assembling forth, legion and about, sounding off, ambling, pursuing happiness with my life and my liberty on my property, exercising my Fourth Amendment right not to be in my person. And we got some gang activity straight ahead. I can see they're doing a search. The trunk's open. I'm on Williams Drive. It's across from Caldwell Banker. And it's the Georgetown Police again. They're at I don't know if this is a park. There's like swings and stuff like that. So he's inventorying the car. All the doors are open. I can't tell who that is. I don't think I've ever seen that officer before. Oh wait, that might be Officer WALLters. Of course, he's super gung-ho. He loves to arrest people for drunk driving, I've noticed. He's got an opinion on pretty much everything. If it is him, I'll probably get an interview at the end. He loves to talk. It's hard to get a word in edgewise, of course, but... Officer WALLters, is that you? I was right. It was Officer WALLters. And hopefully this time I'll just let him talk. You know, I'll ask him some questions to get him started, and then he'll go on and on and on and on. We're across from Caldwell Banker. What is this place?
This is a church.
Oh, a church. All right. You're looking for the address?
Yeah, I got it. I mean, it's on the front. I'm gonna get it like here.
Oh. So the wrecker's here, but he can't get in because the Officer WALLters has it blocked in.
If you're okay with it, I think we can probably pull it out. I guess that parking lot, probably. I'll meet you over there. Yeah, you can't get in here.
I figured you would just move your vehicle and let him back in.
No, yeah, but I mean, it actually drives, so we're just going to drive it around the block and get into a bigger parking lot.
All right, whatever you want to do.
Otherwise, you'd have to winch from the back and winch it up.
All right. Officer WALLters got a plan. I don't know how he's gonna drive that. I guess maybe this goes around. I see. Oh, maybe he can just back it right out of this and get out from, even with this car here. I guess I can't see how much room is on the other side of his cruiser. Oh, the headlight's out. Okay, so that's probably why the guy got stopped in the first place. But, we'll see. I know he'll talk to me. He loves to talk. Unless he gets another call or something like that. But, we've seen each other so many times on so many stops that he's pretty cool with me at this point. So I'm sure he's not going to mind me filming this. Let's see how this goes.
Let me grab my car and then I'll finish this up. Key is in it, but obviously it does run. It's going to run well.
Are you leaving?
No, sir. I'm going to pull around.
Okay. Catching flies? Catching flies?
Yeah. That time of night.
Yeah. How are you doing tonight?
Pretty good about you.
Not too bad. Staying busy or what?
No, not trying to either.
Not trying to? That's a good answer. We don't need to extort the public any more than we have to, right? What company are you with?
Glass record.
What is it?
Glass record.
Glass? All right. That's a nice car. Maybe you guys will get to keep it.
I don't want it.
You don't want it? Is it your company?
No, sir.
Oh.
Still don't want it.
If you say so. You always wait for the officer, so you do it in front of him? Is that the deal?
Yeah, I don't know if he's finished writing everything down yet.
Oh,
Easier for him to do it on the ground.
right. So they got paper plates. Officer WALLters, I overheard him saying that every warning light is going off in the car. There's a headlight out. He did say that, but I already knew that. That's probably why he pulled him over. But as to why he's towing the vehicle, that's another story. I don't see any indicators that it's a motor vehicle. Looks like a private automobile to me. I could be wrong. I was wrong once before, but I was given bad information, so it wasn't my fault. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, Officer WALLters is making his way back onto the news scene. He's so gung-ho. He's going to get himself in trouble one day just for trying to go the extra mile always. He loves to do that. Driving this car like that was unnecessary, you know. He didn't need to put himself or the city at the risk of driving this car, but he did it anyway. You know, his excuse was that it would have had to have been towed out backwards, but I don't know how that's the city's responsibility. So he moved it over here. It is definitely a lot easier for the tow truck driver, that's for sure. I have no doubt about that. It is 11:54 right now on Sunday night, November the 4th. And obviously I've been on this for 9 minutes, so it started at 11:45 is when I got here, but I missed the action. Sometimes he tells me what was going on, sometimes he doesn't. Marijuana shake. I doubt that he called back up for me. This sounds a little more interesting than I thought. Officer WALLters, you gonna talk to me before you leave?
Yeah,
Okay.
hopefully. Can't promise.
All right. So that's car number 56. So he's saying something. I didn't catch every word that he was saying, but I think he ran into whoever was in that car was at 7-Eleven, and there was another car, and they were like backed up talking to each other through the window or something. And I think he like talked to him, and they shied away from him or something, and then he went inside 7-Eleven and came back out and was like looking in the car or something, and then left or was going to his car, and then she backed out and then like gunned it down the road or something, and he was running to his car, but a different officer pulled him over before he got there or something, and he took over. I think he likes to do that. He's really gung-ho. I've seen him take over a stop before for and do a drunk driving test, and the first on scene left. You know, so I'm gonna stop this video before it gets to 15 minutes and start it again. Hopefully Officer WALLters will talk to me. So the car is on the truck now, as you can see. It's all chained down. I guess the tow truck driver's ready to leave. I had to have a talk with Officer WALLters, Lieutenant, again, a couple days ago, Lieutenant Rayleigh. We keep going back and forth about walking on the improved shoulder. Hopefully maybe one day we'll get that taken care of, but I'm not gonna bring that up tonight. I want to talk about he prides himself on knowing court cases, so I'm going to mention State versus Johnson, see if he knows that one, or Roberts versus the Department of Public Works. So like, comment, subscribe, spread the word. Yeah, right? Hey, press on, stumble forth, amble, legion about, sound off, pursue happiness with your life and your liberty on your property while exercising your Fourth Amendment right not to be in your person. Yeah. So this is part 2 of Officer GUNG-HO WALLters having a car towed again. This is the second time I've seen him tow a car. This is, let's see, 1, 2, wait, 1, this is probably like the 5th or the 6th stop I've seen him on. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think this is the 5th stop. I've also seen him at the gas station once. He's talked to me every time, well, except for once on the highway, but I wasn't actually on the highway. I was on the improved shoulder at best, but that's another story that we keep going back and forth on between him and his lieutenant, Lieutenant Rayleigh. who is a lot easier to talk to and have an actual conversation where we can stay on a topic. But you know, Officer WALLters, like, he just likes to talk a lot, and he'll take you all over the place on detours. So he didn't promise that he was going to talk to me tonight, but usually he does. So we'll see. I'm going to bring up State versus Johnson if there's time. Maybe Roberts versus Department of Public Works. See if he's heard of those cases. See what he knows about those. He's doing paperwork over there like a busy little bee. Probably has to give the tow truck driver some paperwork so that he can be on his way. I've never been to this area before. It's my first time, and Officer WALLters is everywhere. I've seen him all over this town. I bet he never even takes a break, for crying in the mud. He's just gung-ho. Look at how fast he's walking, see? He's always willing to go the extra mile. I kind of like that, but it is going to get him in trouble one day, if it hasn't already. That's actually the sad thing about the world today, you know? If you show initiative and try hard, you get dirty. You're bound to mess something up eventually. I'm not out here trying to catch him messing up by going the extra mile, you know?
Generate a report, I'll come over.
All right. See, he just can't resist. He can't. He just loves it. He's funny. I actually don't hate him. I kind of like him, you know. I mean, he's a gang member. He's a member of the Georgetown PD gang. Their code is duty, honor, and community. Yep. They carry guns and tasers. They engage in intimidation. They have structure. He's an officer. His lieutenant is Lieutenant Rayleigh. I've met a Sergeant Laughlin. You know, they have initiation training. They engage in crimes as a group, and extortion, money laundering, fraud. And since they're doing it against the people, of course it's treason. Title 18, Section 2381. You know, I'll start a new video if he comes over, when he comes over here. For sure. Just because I know he likes to talk, so that way I'll have a full 15 minutes for each video, you know. Yeah, Officer WALLters. I run into you all over town. Everywhere I go, I find you first.
Busy.
You are. You're gung-ho. I like that about you.
I'm a magnet.
A magnet?
I like what a good friend of mine, an APD sergeant that does their training academy, and she's got a master's. She teaches actually at ACC, the community college. And she put it one day. She goes, I know you're a magnet, and I'm, an excrement magnet, as they sometimes say. She said, but you know why? And I was like, I don't know, because I'm unlucky, or maybe I'm lucky. I don't know. She's like, because you're always paying attention, and you always see something, and then you just go after it and make sure everything's good. I was like, so I always
you're not.
I thought that sounded pretty good.
I bet you never even take a break. You don't hide in parking lots or anything.
I do. I know. I don't know. No.
Yeah, you don't do that, do you? I can just tell.
Now, sometimes if you see us like we're kind of backed into a parking lot or something like that, a lot of times, I mean, as you know, we're on a sea of paperwork.
Yeah.
So we'll have like a call that lasts an hour. You'll have 3 hours of paperwork. So a
yeah.
lot of the times, we're basically just trying to catch up on the paperwork.
Yeah.
I'm so far behind from Friday.
Right. I don't mess with you guys.
DWIs almost hitting us in the back as we're investigating other DWIs.
Is that what this was?
It was one after another after another.
Is that what this was?
Yes. So it's public information just because it's an arrest. But yeah, she was arrested for driving while intoxicated.
On weed.
What's that?
On weed?
I can't say.
I mean, I overheard you saying there was weed shake.
Well, there is weed all over the car, but
all
that's
over the
not
car?
what the arrest was for.
Okay.
You
didn't charge her with that?
I didn't charge her with anything. Like, I'm basically the check-by officer. I'm the backup officer. We got a call about somebody that may have been driving while intoxicated. We couldn't find the person because the person that called just kind of hung up. So, but I saw two people kind of talking. It looked a little suspicious, but it was nothing. I didn't really want to go over there and intrude because I didn't see anything wrong per se. But, the old sixth sense, sometimes you're seeing things, your brain knows it, you just don't quite know what you saw yet. But there was something a little funny about it. So I just kind of went in the store and I kind of watched for a little bit. And I watched her walk to her car and she was just stumbling, very, very clumsy. It could have been anything. Medical emergency, could be intoxication, could be she's tired. But she got in her car. Unfortunately, when she drove out, she peeled out her tires, gunned it down this way on Williams, and she had no lights on, no front lights, no rear lights, nothing. So she starts taking off down, and so I get in to actually go after her and stop her for having no lights on and, excessive speed, everything else. But my partner was right over here somewhere, so he actually just pulled right in behind her, and then she pulled over.
So he pulled her over?
Yeah.
Well, why did you take the stop? Are you just more experienced with?
Nope. So he's already arrested her and he's at the jail. And,
he arrested her, but you just finished it.
So we have probable cause to do the arrest, but of course he's going to ask if he can do breath or butter, breath or blood, and that gives you above the probable cause at the beyond a reasonable doubt.
Sure.
So he's going to go through all that. He's the primary investigator, and it was because he made the stop. Had I caught up to her first and made the stop, then I would have been the one that did the field sobriety testing. I would have been the one that arrested her. So it really just depends what officer makes the stop.
I just figured you did it because you were doing all the paperwork. But on that freeway one?
No, that's just...
on that freeway one, you took the stop, right? Because I didn't get there right at the beginning, but I saw the first officer that was there left.
That was a transgender... That was the transgender stop, and I did the field sobriety testing on her, and I found that she was not intoxicated. I could tell that she had some clues that she had been drinking alcohol. She admitted to drinking alcohol, but it wasn't at a level where she would have blown above a 0.05 or 0.08, because our testing kind of gets in that area, where we can tell when they're over certain levels. I didn't find that she was, she had a little bit of nystagmus in her eyes, and she was perfect on everything else, which you can make a lot of mistakes in those tests and still pass very easily. A lot of people, they're like, oh, they put their foot down. I wouldn't be able to do that. I'd always put my foot down. I'm like, you can put your foot down and you don't fail the test. It's a whole bunch of different clues, but she passed. So that's why we weren't out there that long. But I think there was another officer that stopped her and I took over, and it was actually because I think it was another agency, and her driving was so dangerous that even though he's outside of his area, we're all Texas peace officers, so we can make a stop outside of the city, the county, whatever. He made the stop, but since it's in our primary jurisdiction and he had to go to another call in his city, then he was like, can you all take that? And we came.
All right. It wasn't a Georgetown PD.
No.
Oh.
I tell you, if I knew, I can't remember if it was
that
County
makes
or Cedar
sense.
Park or Round Rock or something like that. But sometimes they're going to the jail to bring paperwork.
Right.
Now, if they make the stop, usually we'll say, hey, you know, you should probably take the call since they made the stop. They witnessed whatever the reasonable suspicion or probable cause to pull them over. They should usually continue and do the stop. But at the same time, if they've got somebody in the back they're trying to transport to jail, or they've got paperwork they've got to bring in or something like that, then they basically make a sworn statement to us on, I stopped the vehicle for these reasons, and then we base that on that. So if I went to court and they would basically call that officer and me.
Right.
They'd call that officer to figure out why they were stopped in the first place, and then they would go to me for the probable cause for the arrest. But in this case,
if they have a lawyer, a lot of times they don't. They skip that step and then get away with it because the defendant doesn't know.
There's a decent amount of lawyers.
Yeah, there definitely is. They fight that hard.
I think it's because there's so much money involved. DWIs are so dangerous, but they're actually not a high-level crime unless it's been over and over, or it's a high blood alcohol level, or they have kids in the car, you know, that kind of deal, or they hurt somebody, something like that.
Yeah, if they hurt someone.
I say fortunately and unfortunately. I mean, sometimes I wish it was a higher crime, but I don't think that would deter people. I mean, I think people that drink and drive, they really a lot of times don't think that they're drunk, and they're going to get in. Even if they said, hey, this is a death penalty crime, they would still probably go, I'm okay, you know, and they would get in the car and drive. So
Right.
I don't know if it would change it, but we have a lot. Central Texas alone, but Central Texas, we have a major issue with drinking and driving.
I would agree with you there. I have never seen more bottles and cans on the side of the road than in Texas.
Yeah.
It seems like not only do they drink and drive, but they throw the bottles out. You know, and there's
you didn't see the Indian crying. That was a Texas commercial.
The what?
The Indian crying.
I've never seen that commercial.
I mean, you're probably old enough, but it was. I think it's going to be 70s, 80s. I think it was the 70s, and I think it was a Texas commercial, and they had the whole thing of like.
How old do you think I am, Officer Walters?
You're probably older than me, or at least around my age.
How old are you?
Mid-40s. We'll say mid-40s.
Well, we'll say I'm younger than you.
What's that?
We'll say I'm definitely younger than you.
Are you really?
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
I just see like right around here. I can't tell if that's gray or if it's like just lighter.
It's silver, like as in the silver fox. Okay. But
no, that's what throws me off.
I mean, I've been known to get senior citizen discount coffee at McDonald's before, but I've never asked for it. I've never asked for it, and I don't argue with anybody, you know, especially when it comes to coffee.
I'm the opposite. When I was 30, they would card me for like if I had cigarettes or alcohol. I was 40, they're still carding me for cigarettes or alcohol or whatever it was every time. And I was like, it's nice now, kind of, but at the same time, I still get ID'd all the time. And I'm like, yeah, it's good, but it's not so good. But when I was younger, it was horrible. I couldn't get away with anything. I mean, if I was even 20 years old, they'd be like, no, you're 15.
Right. Yeah. So you are so knowledgeable about court cases. Have you are you familiar with State versus Johnson?
That rings a bell. I need context. Is that with
All right. Mr. Johnson was, well, it was implied in the case that he was a mail carrier, but it wasn't specifically said, but he was giving people rides from Helena, Montana to the to like a plant or some business or something. But one person testified that he asked him how much for a ride and he said 10 cents. And some other guy testified that he never asked how much it was, but he just offered 10 cents. And, you know, somebody else testified that, well, it was never discussed how much, and sometimes he didn't pay and sometimes he did. Right. But the gist of the thing is that Mr. Johnson, it is a Supreme Court case though, but Mr. Johnson said that the law, what it was the city of Helena wanted him to get a license in order to run like basically a bus. Okay, because he was driving people, right?
It's similar to the Virginia case with the licensing, like a regular driver's license. They went on that one. But in this case, it was more of a commercial. They wanted him to get some kind of commercial like license to drive people back and forth.
They did, okay. but he was a mail carrier, okay. Right? And so he was saying, well, first off, the trial judge said that, well, Mr. Johnson was arguing that...
I'm listening, and I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I'll wait for you to come back, but...
Seriously, I can hear you.
Okay, so... Mr. Johnson was arguing that, one, the law was really ambiguous and not clear. And it
like 50s, 60s.
And it didn't state an exemption, and it made it appear as though the law applied to everyone. And the trial judge agreed with him and said it does seem like this applies to everyone. And so he stayed it until an appeal or something, right? And so it went to the appellate court, and or it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said that they were right. The law is unclear. Okay. And so, like, for instance, the federal law on driving says it's commercial only, but state laws don't say it's commercial only.
This one's Maryland versus Johnson.
Oh no, this is state versus Johnson is what it's called. It's a Montana case, the one I'm talking about.
Mail carrier in Maryland was stopped by the police, and they stated a fee cannot be constitutionally applied to an employee of the post office.
Right.
This is the state of Maryland versus Johnson, U.S. Supreme Court.
That's a different case, but that's funny that it's very coincidental in the facts are similar. But in this case,
he was going back and forth. He was giving rides to different people. I'm pretty sure that's actually it. There's only one other Johnson case, and then there's no other Supreme Court case that starts with Johnson.
Okay, well, in this case, he was charging, and the court ruled that he put a barrier in between himself and his right, or basically his immunity for mail carrying, because he was charging. So he was doing commerce. And so the court said, yes, the law was ambiguous, but that's okay as long as they don't charge anybody with it that it doesn't apply to. If they do charge someone that it doesn't apply to, then there will be consequences.
Right.
But, so like the state, we've talked about this before, the state law doesn't say driving is commercial only.
Right.
But it doesn't say it's not. It just doesn't say that, right? And that's okay. Okay, because it is commercial only. And if you try and charge somebody that isn't engaged in commerce, or an employee of the government, or an immigrant, then and I say an immigrant because an immigrant has to ask permission to come into the country. And so if you're asking permission, then you're agreeing, legally. Well, I mean, if you're not here illegally, then that's a whole nother story, but I'm not trying to get into that.
Same. I mean, we treat it, even if somebody's here undocumented, against the law, illegally, whatever you want to call it, we still basically uphold the same laws on them, mostly.
Right.
On the federal level, that's different, but on the state level, like, if they're driving without a license, we still charge them as a Mexican citizen for driving without a license.
Right, but if you have to ask the government for permission to come here, then the government must be above you, because you're asking them permission. But if you're born here, you never had to ask the government for anything, because you're above them.
I disagree with that.
Aren't you a servant of the people?
There's almost an implied, in a way. It's as society as a whole, if we all governed each other, we wouldn't have any government. We would be completely on our own, but that's the way we were long ago. And I would argue that we found that doesn't work very well. So we have federal government, local government, state government, things like that. And we basically give up a certain amount of freedoms to be governed by it, to make sure that everybody is safe and everybody is good. But there's that line that goes back and forth. If the government's too strong, we're giving up way too many freedoms, and that's not a good thing. And that's when we tend to have, issues. And then we have things where there's not enough government, and then people are doing stuff and they call us, we come over and they're like, sorry, there's nothing we can do because there's no law against it. So the government in that case is saying, hey, we're not going to touch this. Like that. But I mean, we do have to abide by laws. or else we wouldn't have streets, we wouldn't have power, we wouldn't have anything. You know.
Well, the government was given the authority to make roads for postal roads, and they were given the authority to regulate commerce, and they were given the authority to create coin and regulate weights and measures. Yep. Right. So and all these things.
Pass laws.
Yes, Congress can pass laws, right? Yep. But I mean, what we're talking about are codes, and codes are not laws. It's a different word. It's a different word, and no two words mean the exact same thing. They don't. A lot of times they're very similar, and they're
like they're interchangeable. And a square,
yes.
A rectangle is not a square, but a square is a rectangle.
Right.
But I would put it that the definition time and time again to every court has been that statutes, revised statutes, codes, ordinances, all those are under the general term of this is a law.
Okay. Are you familiar with Roberts versus Department of Public Works?
I mean, you could pull out cases.
That's a very famous case. That's why I'm pulling that one out, because that one is it's actually the litmus test for what personal liberty is, being locomotion, movement. Like right now, see my feet are moving.
Public Works.
Yeah, Department of Public Works.
No case.
It is a case. It's a very famous case. It's from Washington. It did go to the Supreme Court.
Court Justia, and
it's from Washington. Maybe I have.
Maybe it's Roberts versus State of Washington.
Robertson, maybe. Robertson versus Department of Public Works.
I'm trying.
Maybe. Wow, I'm gonna feel really dumb if I have that wrong.
Line rules and stuff like that I usually know, but yeah, it might be Robertson versus.
Maybe that's the judge's name. Sometimes I get these wrong,
Department of Public Works.
Did you find it?
Robertson versus Department of Public Works. It is it's a Washington State case, not Supreme Court. Applies to the state of Washington.
Okay, but it is used. His decision is it's actually in jurisprudence. His
I mean, unless it goes to a federal appellate court or it goes to the Supreme Court, then it only applies to that one state. It's the state of Washington.
That's the ruling applies to Washington, but what he said in
California versus Battle, People versus Battle is California only.
Right, but what he said in his opinion has been cited ever since by Supreme Court justices.
Especially those really old cases like 1920s, 1930s.
Yeah.
A lot of times they'll say, hey, I like what this judge said over here in this state, even though it has no application to this state. It could be a federal judge that says, hey, in this case, the way they did this, I like the way they did this, and I agree with it. But then that would be a different case that would apply. But they could cite it. But they can't cite it as we're using this as it's really not jurisprudence, because they can't really sit back and say, well, they did it in this state, therefore, unless it's one of those things where if it's one state, basically, if a state says, hey, you're married in this state, you're married in all the states. I mean, but we're getting into amendment stuff, 10th Amendment, 14th Amendment, if you have a license in this state, then you're honored to drive in this state kind of deal. Now, they can suspend your privilege in that other state. But if Pennsylvania says, hey, they've got a valid driver's license, they're driving in Pennsylvania with a Pennsylvania license, they come to Texas, they're reckless all over the place, and we end up suspending for some reason like their driving privilege here in this state, then those states can honor it, but they don't have to. But at the same time, if they're on a Pennsylvania license in Texas and they're not suspended out of Pennsylvania, they can drive on the Pennsylvania license. But with court cases, unless it's actually moves up, then it actually doesn't apply. It applies more as somebody giving me advice. Like somebody says, hey, I think this is a good idea. Oh, I agree, that's a good idea. But if I make that decision as a judge, then it's whatever court I'm part of, that's who it applies to.
Right. No, I don't bring it up because it applies. But what I'm saying is that what he said in his opinion is what is written in the jurisprudence book. Okay, they used his wording. in jurisprudence from that case as far as personal liberty being locomotion.
It says it's unreasonable for the state to burden interstate commerce. This is under purview with the federal government. They were basically stating that they were trying to do something that was more towards a United States commercial code. And basically that was a power given to the federal government, and therefore, since it's already given to the federal government, then the state can't make a law,
Right.
The state can only make a law if it's not.
Right. No, in that case, the guy that Mr. Roberts was doing commercial activity. Mm-hmm. He was, right, and he lost his case, if I recall. But what he did say though was that there is a clear and obvious difference between somebody using the road for profit or personal gain and somebody that is using the road in their everyday course of life. And the one that is using the road for profit or personal gain does not have a right to the road. But the one that is not using the road for profit or personal gain does have a right. The right of locomotion, which is the oldest and most blessed.
Yeah, it basically states that. Just let me know if I have any calls or anything. We know of no inherent right, of course this is 1930s, but we know of no inherent right in one to use the highways for commercial purposes. However, as the highways are primarily for the use of public, and in the interest of the public, the state may prohibit or regulate in any way it sees fit the use of the highway for gain. And then it goes on that, however, federal government, if they're passing state lines, that is in the purview of the federal government.
But you get that, right? It says they can regulate for gain, but they can't regulate when somebody is not for gain.
Right. So they're saying in the state of Washington at that time in the 1930s, only in the state of Washington, they were saying, we find that at that time there was no inherent, what did I say? It was no inherent
right to use the road for gain. That's a privilege. Like today, I saw some guy standing on the corner with a sign for like a mattress place.
Yep.
See, he's using the road for profit or personal gain,
which is against the law.
Well,
you can different ways.
You can get a permit, maybe, but I mean, he's using it for profit or personal gain. He's not protesting.
If
he's not assembling
on their own property or on the private property.
No, he was on the sidewalk. I said he was on the corner of the sidewalk.
But which sidewalk? Was it a city provided sidewalk, or was like Wolf Ranch has a sidewalk that they actually own the sidewalk?
Well, where the Starbucks is, where like down there,
29 in the interstate, like near Wolf Ranch Mall.
Yeah, Wolf Ranch one, and then so he was where the overpass was.
Now, if he was over there, then actually we could cite him for it.
Yeah, I would be more interested in the business that sent him over there and not that guy. Yeah. But
we usually give a warning first and say, "Hey, look, I know you're not doing this.
I'm not advocating tickets, but would I? Oh, you on the radio?
Yeah, he's got a call for me. I gotta go.
Which way are you going? Is it far?
I have no idea yet.
All right, thank you, Officer WALLters. You have a good night. Yeah. So that conversation went a little bit better this time because I let him talk more, and I didn't. But it's really hard to keep him focused. As you can see, he's so gung-ho though. Look at him. He should just pull all the way through, but. He's hard-headed, to say the least. So, yeah. Like, comment, subscribe, spread the word. Right? Press on.
Master by the name of Bates, smoking more than all 50 states combined. Yeah, right, I gotta stay on the grind. I got no money, so my weed's on my mind. I hit the club, but I can't dance. 7 and 7 in my cutoff chance. Had that shirt in my my long ass hair. What part of how I look makes you think I care?